all television is performance television in some capacity, whether it's top funnel performance, mid funnel performance, or bottom funnel performance is sort of where the devil is in the details. And so when we think of performance at Moloco, we think about delivering against some of those more mid and bottom funnel outcomes, driving an actual outcome for our advertisers. We were born and raised in the mobile ecosystem, so driving an install, driving an action within that app. Those are the things that really push marketing dollars, the kind of exponential marketing dollar spend. And so we've moved from just this mobile ecosystem into these other surfaces because mobile's gotten so expensive. And so it's really valuable for marketers to be able to find new opportunities to engage with their customers and drive those same outcomes that might get overly priced on either Google search or Meta or even in the mobile ecosystem. Finding places in CTV where they can grab that outcome has been really effective for us. So we've seen a lot of scale.
So on CTV, is it necessarily some kind of interaction that you're looking for, and if so, how does it differ from mobile? I mean, with mobile, it's easy to tap on something, but with CTV, do I have to scan a QR code, or what kinds of interactions are you talking about?
Yeah, it's also the right question. So we generally think about that dust hasn't settled yet. We're in literally the first inning, not to use a sports metaphor, but literally the first inning of performance television. And so the dust hasn't fully settled on what marketers want, but any of the above really works. You can use a QR code, but QR code scan rates are 1/10 of click-through rates, which are like 1/100th of view rates, right? So it's very hard to drive a conversion that way. So we think of it typically in terms of view-through, and marketers are going to they already get over-attribution. If you advertise with Google and Facebook and Trade Desk and across the board, you're getting 15 customers for every one you actually get, or whatever it is, right? You're probably getting 2 or 3 customers more than getting over-attribution. And so on the CTV side, there's going to be some of that as well, where you get a view-through conversion, and there's 4 people jockeying for credit for that. What's really important is that marketers are able to measure more and drive more of that attribution so that they can do that evaluation themselves rather than spending in CTV, it's a black box. Spending in linear television, it's a black box. We know it was value add, but we don't really know how to measure it. And I think before we can do attribution and do optimization, first we need to be able to measure it. And I think your question about how do we measure that, whether it's a QR code, whether it's a view-through attribution, it's not as engaged as a mobile performance click or an online display ad that converts to a Sephora purchase. Like, that's very, very hard to do. And no one's really done it except for maybe YouTube. And so the hope is that we can do more and more of that across this ecosystem to keep us sort of at parity with Google, Amazon, the big tech giants that are killing it.
So what are some of the common questions you get about a CTV? Are there any areas you find yourself educating clients about it?
I think one of the biggest questions that I get a ton of, so I came from a brand DSP and have now moved into a performance role. One of the questions I get asked is people really want their cake and they want to eat it too, right? And so they say, well, I can't spend $1 on CTV if it's not going to yield X, Y, and Z outcome that I'm looking for. And also I want to run on the NFL. Well, those are really hard to make work, right? So if you can't, you've got to kind of divorce the two. And there's a reason for both of them. If you are Pampers and you want to be aligned with a specific show, or you're, Home Depot and you want to be aligned with college football, there's a reason to buy that is outside of getting people to download your app. But if you want them to download your app, you just got to be comfortable running on wherever you can get that efficiently. And so it's that cake and eat it too dichotomy that is going to sort of necessarily break down over time, but it's going to take a long time. People are used to, when they think of TV, they think of the things they're used to watching rather than, hey, this is just like mobile or social or wherever it is. I'm just looking for the outcome, and how I get there is kind of immaterial. That break hasn't happened yet because I think people still think, well, if it's CTV, I'd like to be running against something really high value.
So in the digital space, we saw the growth of the walled gardens, and whether it's Google, Amazon, Facebook. But how does that apply to CTV? Except I suppose CTV apps all are their own little walled gardens too.
Right.
But what can you tell us about what's happening as far as the big tech players, CTV publishers, traditional media companies, and what it all means for advertisers?
It's a scary time. There's a lot of turbulence across the entire market, and the big tech giants are coming in. I mean, for a long time, CTV was this fragmented ecosystem that was being jostled between sort of these new upstarts, the OEMs, and these smaller apps. and the traditional legacy cable companies. And FANG, or whatever you want to call them, the big tech companies hadn't really waded into that. They had versions of a product that was doing marketing, but it wasn't in the CTV space or just in the television space in general. Those companies are doing content now. And so that's really scary, right? You're seeing a lot of pressure on the traditional legacy cable companies. There's going to be consolidation. There's going to be a lot of pressure on both the cost of content and also the outcomes that these companies are able to deliver. Those companies, NBC, Disney, Paramount, Fox, all of the major legacy companies we've seen forever, they're really good at making content. They're not quite as good at delivering the outcomes or driving sort of that pure marketing engine that Google and Meta have made. And so our hope at Moloco is to be a part of helping arm the rebels, if you will, right? Allow this CTV ecosystem to flourish and compete at parity with a lot of those big tech products. Because it's easy to badmouth big tech, but they made really, really powerful products. Those products just work. You ask anyone who's starting a business, and the last place they're parking money is on NBC. The first place they're parking money is on Google search, and then it's on Meta, and then it's on TikTok, and then they're working their way up the funnel. And so if we're going to do performance in this space, we've got to be able to do it at parity with those big tech companies.
Well, I guess the hope for CTV, especially if you are, is that you can reach those small business people. It's more accessible than, they're not going to buy national.
Totally.
So maybe what can you say about that as far as the opportunity? There's some opportunity out there, right? For
100%. It's
yeah.
totally right. That's the exact right framing, because whereas it used to be you needed to have $500,000, like no local QSR is going to put $500,000 into TV. Now there is availability, but it still has to deliver against it has to have an ROI positive effect. Small businesses used to not be able to get into TV because they were priced out. Now they're not priced out, but it's still not a product that's valuable to them unless it can hit their bottom line. In the same way, like Hershey's can deliberate over the next 5 years as to whether or not their X millions of dollars are valuable and effective, and they can shift the budgets the right way. But if you're living on a shoestring budget trying to make ends meet in a local market, you don't have that luxury of saying, let's throw some money at it and see if it works. And so it's not just enough to have availability and micro-targeted availability. We also need to be able to measure the efficacy of those ads. And then once we know that they're effective, drive towards those outcomes. And all of those things are hard to do, but they are doable. And so the optimism in me is that, hey, these are doable things. They are hard, but we need to figure out how to do that together as an industry.
That's great. So looking ahead, is there anything that you're optimistic about or looking forward to, or conversely, something that keeps you up at night, you're scared about?
Yeah, Amazon always scares me. It should scare everyone. Everything that they touch just becomes like their market. And they've just done it in retail media. They've already done it. We've been hearing about that all weekend. We'll continue to hear about it. But I think big tech entering this space, it's really a make or break moment for not just the CTV ecosystem, but the open internet marketing ecosystem. And we've got to figure out as an industry how to get crisper on measurement, crisper on attribution, and delivering a product that is competitive with those, rather than talking about how that product's not relevant or that product's not as good as ours. It is really good, and we need to take what we can and learn from big tech as they enter this market and try and compete with it, rather than try and differentiate, because the more we differentiate, the more market share they seem to win.